The number of HIV infections and other sexually transmitted diseases have seen an alarming rise among young men, particularly African American youth, who are living on the streets and selling their bodies to survive. That's why HIV prevention has become a major focus for a Chicago organization called Emmaus Ministries. To learn more, we welcome Syl Davis, Director of Ministry and Outreach at Emmaus, along with Steve Johnson, who was once a homeless youth himself and now helps other young people through Emmaus. Would you please, Syl, explain to us the history of Emmaus Ministries, the background?
Emmaus is getting ready to celebrate its 24th year in ministries, and basically our motto is to make Jesus known on the street, not just by preaching and talking about it, by being a living example. And so we have outreach teams who are out 7 nights a week in the particularly Boys Town, but other areas where these young men are forced to sell themselves on the streets. And then we have a drop-in center that they get referred to where they can come and get basic needs such as shower, laundry, pastoral counseling, and assessment for other services such as drug treatment, HIV testing, mental health treatment as well. And then we have a prison component because unfortunately these young men also end up going in and out of prison. And so we have a pen pal and we do visits throughout the state wherever these young men are incarcerated.
Why the name Emmaus?
Emmaus came back, if you look in the Bible, once Jesus was crucified and had arisen, he appeared with two men walking down the road of Emmaus. And so our motto from our founder, John Green, was to meet these young men, whatever road they were on, wherever they were at on the road, and to walk alongside of them, to be companions. We become big brothers, fathers, whatever we need to be to the young men.
That's wonderful. Steve, how did you find Emmaus Ministries?
I found Emmaus Ministries actually through my street family network.
Okay.
I was told I could get a place to eat and stay for a while and possibly get some spiritual encouragement.
Can you tell us a little bit about your struggle, if you don't mind, your journey, I should say?
Well,
and how you ended up on the street and then making a decision that this was enough?
Well, I ended up on the streets at age 17 was when it started.
Okay.
It went from, and also I'm from the south suburbs.
Okay.
Being homeless out in the south suburbs is definitely not something. Yes, it definitely is. There's no services. There's not enough services like you would see on the in Chicago.
Very unforgiving too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the time I was 18, I ended up on the north side of Chicago.
Okay.
I got here and I was like, wow, you know, once again, I'm an individual from the south suburbs. It was the uptown neighborhood in particular. It made me feel like as if I was in a movie, being around these tall buildings and being around these different services that I had no clue was available, including Emmaus.
And as far as the epidemic with HIV and then leading into the sex trade, what do you think is some of the causes of this in young black males? And you can also chime in on that too if you have an idea as to why this is happening and why it's growing so fast.
I think a lot of the misconception that it's still a gay white disease, that, you know, we're young and whether they've heard the information or a lot of the misinformation that is still out there. A lot of the fear and stigma that we just had a young man that tested positive last week. And so right away when he heard that, he said, I thought I was going to die, that it was a death sentence. And so despite all of the information about the medications and help that's out there, still this feeling, as any of us would feel in getting, you know, life-changing news about an illness. And so again, being homeless as a lot of our men are, I'm worried about where I'm going to eat and sleep, let alone trying to get the information that I now am impacted by HIV. Also, if you find out a lot of the medications, Steve and I were just at the state HIV/AIDS convention, and so one of the medicines, Calidra, it gives you diarrhea. If I'm homeless, the last thing I need is diarrhea. So,
right. So how have you been helping with this, and how has this changed your life so far? I'm sure through helping others, but
yeah. I've been helping with it through volunteering at Emmaus, also Just volunteering in the sense of basically being a person who's been out there and is actually able to relate. I can hear a story and have no problem just sitting back and just listening. And a lot of times, other than food, clothing, and shelter, that's definitely needed. Also, I kind of wanted to piggyback on the whole HIV thing. There's a such thing also as like already assuming that you have it anyway, or whether it's HIV or STD. And so you're like, oh man, you know, I think I got it, I think I got it. So it kind of puts you in the state where you're like, I don't even want to get tested, you know. Also, like, even if you weren't even thinking that, a lot of guys that I know in particular have been out on the streets for so long and have been doing the repeated same cycle that they kind of feel that, you know, that they failed at life. They're like, man, now if I was to be positive for STD or HIV, oh man, well, this is the only thing I succeeded in, kind of thing. So it really put a how do you say, a heavy load on their mentality. So.
How's your life now after Emmaus?
Amazing, I have to admit. I can actually wake up in the morning and, you know, not be worried about getting kicked out, or, you know, not being in an abandoned building, or, you know, where I'll have to leave before the workers get there, or, you know, not being harassed by the police, or, you know, anything.
That's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Definitely.
To actually be able to go to the lake willingly, you know, not because you have to, because you need somewhere to sleep, but to go to the lake and actually see the sunrise, that's definitely beautiful.
Wow. I also wanted to touch a little bit just on why there's a decision to sell bodies in order to survive and not do other things. You know, there's lots of things out there, but being infected and then choosing that as your means. Why do you think there's such a high rate in that in African American men?
Well, I don't think that people knowingly who make a conscious decision, if they are impacted, to go out and sell themselves. Right. But a lot of the people say, you know, I could rape, I could rob, I could be out selling drugs. I don't want to do those things. And so the one commodity that I do have that I'm in control of to some degree is selling my body. But another thing that I've heard far too often from a lot of the young men, they have been raped and molested. And so they're saying, if people are going to take it from me, I might as well get some money and sell myself. And so they get into it. Nobody just wakes up, though, with that conscious of a decision. Most of the young men have said, or the men we service will say, I was only going to do this for a short period of time, to get on my feet, to get a job, to get a room to stay in, and then I was going to quit, and it become this vicious cycle that they get sucked into.
Is there also a stigma that needs to be broken about African American males having to be gay to have HIV? And everyone that's HIV positive who's a black male is probably gay. Have you seen anything different than that sort of stereotype?
I think that definitely that stereotype still exists, that anybody, because a lot of times if you tell people that you are impacted, that you are infected, right away they want to know, well, how did you get it? You know, it's irrelevant how you got it, you're impacted, you need to do something about it. If I'm telling you, it's because I trust you enough. But that stigma still is there, and so people will close down and not get tested, or definitely won't tell somebody that they're impacted, and so that still is, I think, a big part of what we see in our community.
Thank you so much, Sil and Stephen, for sharing with us today. It's very important. I appreciate it. I'm Tamara Love for Different Drummers and the Greater Chicago Broadcast Ministries. Keep the faith.